The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
And so was this the weekend where journalism officially died in America? Because I cannot remember a worse weekend for the mainstream media in the United States. And it's sad and it's disgusting and it's infuriating, and everybody should be aware of the kind of filter that you're getting your news through from the networks, because this was about the most disgusting I've ever seen. And the fact that I'm even talking about some national stuff, we have a lot of local news we'll get to today. Polling that shows how you are so against bike lanes and tolls in this region. A 16-year-old Renton teen shot and killed at a Walmart. More with the homeless. The tunnel people are lying to us. King County's telling us how to use heroin correctly. So we got a lot of local news that I'm going to get to. But I'm pretty passionate about our top story.
The Big Lead. Bizarro World.
So over the weekend, a video surfaced and went wild on social media and then into the mainstream media. And what it showed was a bunch of high school kids from a Catholic high school in Covington, Kentucky. They were attending the March for Life in Washington, D.C. And at one point, a Native American Vietnam vet and one of the high school kids, they're seen kind of almost nose to nose with the Native American guy, just pounding a drum in the kid's face. The kid doesn't say anything. He doesn't make any gestures. He has a smile on his face. And those are his classmates chanting behind him. So based on those 11 seconds, we saw a meltdown from the left. And that means from ABC, NBC, CNN, the New York Times, Washington Post, all of which I will cite exactly what they did. So these high school kids, they are the most evil and vile of human beings to the progressive media. Why? Well, some of them were wearing Make America Great Again baseball caps. So they like the president. Strike one. They are predominantly white. Strike two. They were at a March for Life. They're pro-life. Strike three. But this is a different game where you have lots more strikes. Because these kids also were not responding the way the protesters wanted them to. In other words, they didn't just join in with these radical groups that were at the Lincoln Memorial with them. So they're Christians. The media, the progressive media, hates Christianity. And so the kids had all of these things lined up against them. So what started circulating was that this one teenage kid who's kind of nose to nose with the Native American pounding the drum, that he has a smirk on his face. And that's when the tweets started flying. A guy who goes by Uncle Shoes on Twitter, who's followed by, among others, Barack Obama, suggested lock the kids in the school and burn that B word to the ground. So in other words, all of those high school kids should be immolated because of what people saw in that clip. You had the kids getting relentlessly doxxed with the encouragement of people like Patton Oswalt, the non-funny comedian, Kathy Griffin. They were all encouraging, let's get their names, the addresses, the parents' names and addresses. Let's go and punch them in the face. Let's burn down their houses. Let's kill them. All of this circulating on Twitter over the weekend. CNN, from their official Twitter account, Video shows a crowd of teenagers wearing Make America Great Again hats taunting a Native American elder after Friday's Indigenous Peoples March at the Lincoln Memorial. So-called conservatives like S.E. Cupp on CNN. She told the kids what a bad example they set.
Clearly, these boys are not getting a good education because it makes little sense to angrily chant "build the wall" to a population with literally zero illegal immigrants.
Only one problem. There were videos of the entire encounter, an hour's worth, all of which I watched, all of which a lot of other people watched. There's zero evidence that any of the kids ever chanted "build the wall." The Indian who was pounding the drum in their face, he accused them of that, but there's no evidence. Oh, but on and on it goes. Democratic Congressman John Yarmouth on Twitter, "I am calling for a total and complete shutdown of teenagers wearing MAGA hats until we can figure out what is going on. They seem to be poisoning young minds. The conduct we saw in this video is beyond appalling, but it didn't happen in a vacuum. This is a direct result of the racist hatred displayed daily by the President of the United States." That's a Democratic congressman who publicly called these kids racist. And that's where, Sean King, a leftist activist. "I'm so deeply grieved and angry by this as young kids in MAGA hats surrounded and mocked a beloved Native American elder. When your power is centered in your whiteness, mocking others who are unlike you makes you feel strong. It's weak and it's despicable." Then the video of the entire encounter came out. First of all, there were a couple of groups. The Native American group that was there. There was another group called the Black Hebrew Israelites, a radical group that despises homosexuals, among other things. And so then people started seeing that little clip I just played for you. They started seeing it in a little more context. So that's one of the Indians yelling at the kids, "Go back to Europe where you came from."
This is not your land. No, it's not. You've been here 2-3 generations. Compared to us, we've been here millions years.
So here you got some 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old high school kids who were just there for a March for Life. And all of a sudden, the Black Hebrew Israelites are screaming in their face. Some of the other things that are heard on tape from the Black Hebrew group: "Your president is a homosexual. Your president is a homosexual. Greek was a bunch of homosexuals, just like the Romans. You proud of sodomy? You give the F gay slur word. You give that F's rights." Even conservatives, so-called conservatives, turned against the boys. The National Review, a conservative website if there ever was one, they decided not to check any facts. They said, their deputy editor, Nicholas Frankovich, "The Covington students might as well have just spit on the cross. They mock a serious, frail-looking older man and gloat in their momentary role as Roman soldiers to his Christ." So here's what really happened. So the kids are just there for the March for Life, and because they hear all of these slurs being screamed at them by the Indians, by the Black Hebrew group, one of them said, "Hey, can we bring some positive energy?" And they asked one of their chaperones, "Can we do some of our school chants?" Which are all positive. There's nothing racist about them. There are no slurs in them. They just said, "Hey, let's do something fun. And we'll clap and we'll chant and we'll cheer and we'll do our school chants. And we'll see if we can bring some positive energy to what was a really hateful place." While they're doing that, the Native American with the drum, Nathan Phillips, he walks through the crowd, and they kind of parted for him because some of the kids thought, oh, he's going to just drum with us and support us. Instead, Nathan Phillips walked right up to the kid and started pounding the drum in his face for several minutes. He is the instigator, the Native American guy. The Black Hebrews were the instigators. The kids did and said nothing wrong. In fact, when one of the classmates started arguing a little bit with one of the Indian group who was calling them gay slurs, they turned to one of the Covington classmates who was black and said that his classmates were going to eat his organs. They called the kids the product of incest. Let me read to you. The kid whose face has been seen around the world, Nick Sandman, he has released a statement. He said, the protesters said hateful things. They called us racists, bigots, white crackers, the F gay slur, and incest kids. They taunted an African-American student from my school by telling him that we would harvest his organs. I have no idea what that insult means, but it was startling to hear. Because we were being loudly attacked and taunted in public, a student in our group asked one of our teacher chaperones for permission to begin our school spirit chants to counter the hateful things that were being shouted at our group. The chants are commonly used at sporting events. During the period of the drumming, a member of the protesters' entourage began yelling at a fellow student that we stole our land and that we should go back to Europe. I am being called every name in the book, including a racist, and I will not stand for this mob-like character assassination of my family's name. My parents were not on the trip, and I strive to represent my family in a respectful way in all public settings. I have received physical and death threats via social media, as well as hateful insults. One person threatened to harm me at school. One person claims to live in my neighborhood. My parents are receiving death and professional threats because of the social media mob that has formed over this issue. I love my school, my teachers, and my classmates. I work hard to achieve good grades and to participate in several extracurricular activities. I'm mortified that so many people have come to believe something that did not happen. That students from my school were chanting or acting in a racist fashion toward African Americans or Native Americans. I do not have hateful feelings in my heart and did not witness any of my classmates doing that. I can tell you my experience with Covington Catholic is that students are respectful of all races and cultures. We also support everyone's right to free speech. So now there is a mad rush on Twitter by journalists, and I'll do the air quotes around that because journalism's dead. Journalists are madly trying to delete their tweets from over the weekend. Jake Tapper from CNN, Dilbert cartoonist Scott Adams posted a video apology for what he tweeted over the weekend. New York Times opinion writer Kara Swisher, she had tweeted that she was thinking of finding every one of these S-word kids and giving them a very large piece of my mind. Sinclair is called a conservative outlet, right? Well, their chief political correspondent, Scott Thurman, deleted a tweet alleging the students in MAGA hats were mocking and taunting the Native American. Anti-Trump activist Ed Krasenstein has deleted a tweet. His brother, Brian, called the students bigoted. The New Republic's Jeet Heer deleted a tweet arguing that the MAGA hat-wearing teens were racist. CNN's Bakari Sellers deleted a tweet suggesting the kids should be punched in the face. Hollywood's Patton Oswalt deleted his tweet linking to another that doxed the young teens. So that was a big thing. Let's get their names out there. Let's get their addresses out there. And let's have the mob destroy the lives of these kids and their families. CNN's Anna Navarro deleted her tweet calling out the asswipe parents of the students for teaching them bigotry and racism. The parents have a lawyer who has offered to represent them in lawsuits against the individual journalists and the news networks and the Hollywood celebrities because they all jumped on board a completely false narrative. And I'm not big on, as you know, I'm not big on ridiculous lawsuits. I would love to see CNN get sued. I would love to see MSNBC for some of the stuff they said over the weekend. I'd love to see Patton Oswalt get sued. Kathy Griffin, who on Twitter, name these kids. I want names. Shame them. If you think these F words wouldn't dox you in a heartbeat, think again. So Kathy Griffin encouraging the mob to go after these kids and their families at their houses in any way they can. If I was the parent of one of these kids, I would file a massive lawsuit. These are powerful networks with unbelievable resources accusing children of something that was 100% false. The New York Times, the Washington Post. Here's the New York Times headline: Boys in Make America Great Again hats mob native elder. They described it as the latest touch point for racial tensions in America. Absolute pure fake news by the New York Times. How about the Washington Post? Here's the beginning of their story. A Native American man steadily beats his drum at the tail end of Friday's Indigenous Peoples March while singing a song of unity, urging participants to be strong against the ravages of colonialism. Surrounding him are a throng of young, mostly white teenage boys, several wearing Make America Great Again caps. One stood about a foot from the drummer's face, wearing a relentless smirk. Nathan Phillips, a veteran in the indigenous rights movement, was that man in the middle. In an interview Saturday, Phillips said he felt threatened by the teens and that they swarmed around him. Pure lie. Reported unchallenged by the Washington Post. Children's lives turned upside down. Except, I hope they all turn out wealthy. I would love to see the so-called news networks. Journalism's dead. Journalism's dead in America. New York Times, Washington Post, CNN. It's crazy. And that is your big lead.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.